Hello YouTube, this is Hardcore 46. This video is titled the Prepper Defense Force, or PDF, Sector Sketch. Here are some references that pertain to sector sketches. Range cards depict the sectors of fire and applicable terrain for each individual defensive fighting position. Sector sketches consolidate the information from multiple range cards to provide the element leader with a graphic representation of his unit's assigned sector of responsibility. The sector sketch helps the leader to ensure that there are no gaps in the line. It will also help higher level leaders track and control the battle should that become necessary. The sector sketch should contain the following information. 1. Significant terrain features such as streams or rivers, high ground, roads and trails, dead space, or any other key terrain such as bridges or other natural or man-made choke points. 2. The sector sketch should contain the left and right sector limits for each position and or squad, expressed as a magnetic azimuth. And these should include the primary position, the alternate positions, and supplementary positions if necessary. Okay, number 3, it should depict target reference points, or TRPs, their location and their description. Number 4, key weapons positions. Number 5, listening posts, observation posts, or LPOPs. Number 6, obstacles and early warning devices should be marked on the sector sketch, such as wire, flares, etc. Number 7, the command post, or CP, should be marked. Number 8, the date time group of when the sketch was prepared. Number 9, the name, rank if applicable, and unit or group of the person that prepared the sector sketch. A copy of the sector sketch needs to remain at the unit's command post, and another needs to be delivered to the next higher headquarters. If there is a significant change within the sector, an updated sketch should be prepared. Here is the beginning of the sector sketch. This is a road, the red's a road labeled SR902. The blue is a seasonal stream or river. Right down here is a bridge crossing, and up here is just labeled some trees. This is before any of the unit locations are marked or any control measures are marked. It does have the north arrow on the sketch already. So now I've added the sketch here, sector sketch. This big peanut, this big oval, is the platoons where they're sitting on the ground. That's small. These are 3 squad positions with their individual 2-man fighting positions. And it's showing so each of these positions should have a range card prepared for it so that the leader can combine them all. You may end up having several layers of sector sketches prepared as the perimeter gets larger, or the place you're defending gets larger. You know, it has more personnel in it. So we have the left and right limits for these positions here. Of course, they're interlocking, overlapping. The flag, this is your command post, or CP, and in this case that would be where the platoon leadership would be located. If you had the personnel to have a squad leader not dedicated into one of the holes, the squad leader would be hopefully be central, located just behind the fighting positions, so he can influence the fight in his area. I've drawn these brown lines, exaggerated in scale, but that's depicting the dead space. It's along the creek bed, it's low ground that these positions can't see into or shoot directly into. That's important to show on your sector sketch, dead space. I spoke about dead space in a video of its own, talking about the challenge preppers have in covering and controlling dead space. Here in orange, I've put some examples of target reference points, or TRPs. This one is obviously important. It's a bridge, it's a choke point. The other ones I just put on here for example, but they're labeled. If you had TRPs in your sector that you needed to depict them. If there's a certain description so everybody knows what that is, what's there. As I said, this is the bridge. If there was some object or key terrain feature or something located at the TRP, a description should be on the in the range cards, and it's better to be clear to everyone what those TRPs represent. The sector sketch can get quite elaborate. Can have the depictions, like I said before, of the alternate positions of fighting positions, CPs. It could have, if your defense force had say a casualty collection point in that area for that group's where they want to bring their casualties to. It could also depict the routes where your the people manning your LPOP are coming in and out of the perimeter. Here are some more considerations, or here are things to consider when you're preparing the sector sketch. Significant terrain is annotated. Like I said before, streams, high ground, trails, the left and right sector limits in magnetic azimuth for all the primary, alternate, and supplementary. On your target reference points, TRPs, if you're using GPS, all these positions, locations can also have a grid coordinate recorded. I wouldn't count on that lasting. You need batteries. You need. You're hoping you are not going to have GPS in the event of an EMP, or very possibly in the event of excessive rule log, GPS may be shut down. The unencrypted GPS signals may be shut down or degraded, and making them inaccurate and not useful. It wasn't that long ago when President Clinton lifted the encryption that makes GPS for civilians so accurate now. And going back to the TRPs need to be recognizable, make sense, and we make sure that we have a chart or a table that keeps track of them. All right, we're starting out here with the we're going to call this the two-man defensive fighting position. So we got our two guys that are manning this. Then we have another one over here, another one over here, and we got their squad leader position maybe back here. So for each of these positions, the guys manning this hole, they prepared a range card showing their sector fire and any significant features that might be present, such as this bridge right here. Let's say these guys have railroad tracks in their sector. So in this case, the squad leader is going to prepare kind of like a giant range card that encompasses what his squad is assigned to cover. So his whole squad is got from here to here. That's the left and right limits for the squad. So he needs to make a sketch that covers everything that's in his area, and he needs to keep that with him here. He also needs to forward it back to the platoon leader at the CP. So each squad does this, forwards a copy to the platoon leader. The platoon leader makes a platoon sector sketch. If in the grid down or the post-collapse environment, you can call the elements, the units of your defense force, whatever it may be. You know, you can call them teams or sections or groups or whatever you want to name it. I'm just using the standard infantry parlance here. A couple of years ago, Hibernian Sun put out a video describing, and he had a location on the map, Ione or Medellin Falls or one of the other little towns up there in the northeast corner of Washington State. And he showed it on a map, and it's a hypothetical situation. This is not a detailed, exact thing how you should do it or whatever. But he refers often in his videos to this depiction of this little town area as a delta-shaped perimeter, triangular-shaped perimeter. And so I've got a triangle up here. Irish's delta-shaped perimeter in his scenario had sides that were 2,000 meters long, each side, being an equilateral triangle. 2,000 meters is roughly 1.25 miles. Taking his hypothetical, I don't remember the exact staffing level he's talking about on his perimeters, but taking this delta-shaped perimeter he brought up, if we were to divide this in even 100-meter increments, then we would have 20 positions per side. So for each individual defensive fighting position, those manning that would have their sector of fire, and then however you group the positions, how you divide it up, each squad leader or whatever you call them would create a squad sector sketch incorporating the individual the defensive fighting positions in his squad's area of responsibility. And then if you took it up higher, a platoon leader would do that for the entire platoon. I'm labeling the sides as red, white, and blue, and we'll refer to the personnel manning the DFPs of each side as platoons. Now if you've got 20 positions down here, it's going to be very difficult for one person to supervise 20 positions during contact with bad guys. Somebody's assaulting your perimeter. So there's going to have to be some subdivision dividing this, like I said before, probably into squads, dividing the sides into squads. If 2 men, used generically, are assigned to each DFP, then we have 40 soldiers or troops per side. In order to achieve a manageable span of control, let's divide these 40 troops into 4 10-man squads. Each squad needs a leader, which is a role filled by a sergeant in the armed forces. While you could designate one of the 10 as the squad leader, he would have trouble manning his spot in the line and simultaneously leading the other 9. If possible, the squad leader should supervise his sector and provide leadership support and guidance. Since electronic communications may not be an option, assigning a messenger or runner to the squad leader would be beneficial. If you are fortunate enough to have field telephones and or radio communications, the runners can act as a radio telegraph operator or RTO. Each of these platoons would also need a leader called, you guessed it, a platoon leader. The Army assigns that job to a lieutenant. Since the platoon leader has 4 squads to command here, spread over a 1 1/4 mile sector, he usually has an assistant called a platoon sergeant in the Army. In your prepper defense force, you may not want to refer to folks by rank, so the platoon sergeant could be referred to as assistant platoon leader or APL. Giving each of these leaders a runner will facilitate effective communication. Keep in mind that you could utilize someone as a runner or messenger that may not be suitable suitable or capable of bearing arms. The 3 platoon leaders report to the captain or chief of internal security. This Prepper Defense Force has become what is referred to as a company-sized element, so that's why I referred to their leader as a captain. Your group may create whatever command structure you like. Using this example, the crew of each DFP will complete a range card. The squad leaders will create sector sketches for their area of responsibility. The platoon leaders will collect the sketches from their sergeants and create a platoon sketch, and the captain will follow suit and create a company sketch. Now, this company sketch in this hypothetical scenario would incorporate all 3 sides of this community defensive perimeter. Sector sketches should also be created for any outside the wire post, such as an LPOP. Copies of these sketches would go to the captain or leader of the exterior or ranger force and to the community security chief. You may have someone who's the overall chief of security that has command or leadership of the outside the wire troops and your inside the wire troop. As on the range cards, the sector sketch should include the type of weapons that are being used at each position. For example, do the troops in that position have a semi-automatic rifle like an AK-47 or an AR-15, or are they armed with a less capable firearm such as a bolt-action, lever-action gun or a shotgun? And speaking of what type of firearms your defense force is armed with, you may have to consider what type of armament is available when you decide who to put in each of these positions. Some of the positions on this perimeter maybe have key avenues of approach. They may have key terrain, choke points, etc. The most likely avenue approach, the most dangerous portion of the line, should obviously be manned by people that are bearing the most effective weapon systems, such as if you have heavier caliber, such as a 308 semi-automatic or rifles. They may take in place of having a machine gun. If in the Army, the less sensitive or less critical parts of the line could be manned by people with your Mosin Nagants or your hunting rifle, or the Model 94 Winchester 3030 or something like that. So be smart about who you put where, what kind of weapons you're putting where. Right? When you're placing, remember when you're assigning fighting positions, it is important to ensure that each fighting position can be observed and supported by at least 2 other neighboring, 2 other fighting positions, so they have mutual supporting fire. And I'm not saying that having these positions 100 meters apart is optimal or good way to man this hypothetical position perimeter. I'm just using this as an example of how to organize the perimeter that you have. And perimeters would take all shapes, different sizes, and this scenario, as Irish described in the original video that I'm referring back to, and this is not something that would start up when the balloon went up. This would take a lot of time and effort to organize, to gather the people, to get into some type of community spirit, to cooperate with each other for mutual survival. You'd have task management here. You'd have your most able-bodied, experienced, and well-trained and equipped people. Probably the majority of those are going to be operating the outside the wire force, what I call the ranger force. And I'm talking about ranger school grad. That would be great. I'm just talking about they're ranging about. They're not the ones more sedentary, where they will have they will have non-combat tasks as their primary function, food production, whatever. You may have very few, if any, but probably very few of the perimeter positions would be constantly manned. You know, maybe those key areas, if you have an ECP, entry control point, that's right on your perimeter, you know, maybe it's a secondary one that's beyond you. Maybe you have an ECP a little ways out away, depending on how the access is. But if you have an ECP on your perimeter, obviously that's going to be a 24/7 operation. But the rest of those positions are probably going to be vacant until something happens. And you know, these people are going to drop their shovel and their pick on the signal and go man their position. Okay. You know, I guess I'm not a Navy guy, but you know, general quarters or battle stations, all hands on deck type of situation. That's when I'm talking about these holes are getting filled by bodies. These, you know, your troops are going to man their positions in that event. You get all, you know, like I said before, you know, whatever your most potent weapon systems are, you're going to position at key points. You got a high-speed avenue approach, a road. You know, I mean, you got there's obstacle plans, you know, disrupt and channelize, obstruct or channelize, you know, deter people from coming in on that. But you also, if you had something like a Barrett, a 50 cal, or one of the bolt action 50 caliber rifles, you know, that's probably something you would want to have positioned where a high threat vehicular approach would be, you know, where bad guys would be approaching in some type of vehicle. So the people manning the inside the wire, you know, they stated before their duties would require allow a more sedentary person to man those. They're like your home guard, you know, interior force. All right, I made another depiction of the delta-shaped perimeter here. So the greens representing the white side, red side, the four red squads here, 5 defensive fighting positions in each squad's sector, a little command post, just meaning where the squad leader would position himself, the interlocking fields of fire for each of the defensive fighting positions is depicted here. The squads, red 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you were referring to them over radio or field telephone, maybe even on a written message or whatever, you would refer to this squad leader to probably red 1, 6, meaning that he's the leader of red 1, the squad leader of red 1. The platoon leader, as I was saying before the battery went dead on the camera, we have red side, white, red side, white side, blue side, first squad, second squad, third squad, fourth squad. The squad leader of the first squad, call sign or handle or whatever it could be, red 1, 6, meaning that the designation of 6 being the leader of that element. Likewise, the squad leader for a second squad would be red 2, 6. The platoon leader of red platoon would be red 6. These principles of having range cards, having overlapping fields of fire, having some kind of organization for whoever is defending the perimeter, whether you have a small perimeter or a large perimeter, the same principles apply. Remember, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And when survival is the mission, failure is not an option. Thanks for watching. Please check out my other videos. Click on like and subscribe. Keep prepping, my friends. This is Hardcore 46 out.